Hello, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow
for Expansions.com, and as you all know, we just got back from our epic journey across the Caribbean and the northern part of South America. We visited a lot of countries, and hopefully you'll read the article that's posted on our site about the adventurer's return. It was quite an amazing trip, and it was very long, very hot, very humid, and it's interesting to be back in the cold environment of Michigan again. But we learned a lot on this trip, and we saw a lot on this trip.
We went deep into the Amazon jungle, which was absolutely fascinating.
And some parts of it were a little bit scary. When we went to the central part of Suriname, where we climbed up a mountain in a four-wheel drive bus to the Brownsburg Nature Preserve. That road was a bit rough. It was unpaved, muddy, rocky, and even though the bus had four-wheel drive, we could feel the wheels slipping and the bus sliding a little bit towards the edge, which was a little bit unnerving. But we did eventually make it to the top, and then I thought the worst was over. But then we had a very interesting hike across and through the jungle, up and down the sides of mountains to get to a waterfall in the middle of a narrow ravine, very deep inside the jungle. And of course the guide told us that there were reports that day of poisonous snakes on the trail, but quite frankly it wasn't very much of a trail because you couldn't really see a path at all. It was just jungle growth. And we did get very much bitten by insects. We did get to see some, I think they're called howler monkeys, and we did see some lizards, and we saw some incredible electric blue butterflies that were quite amazing.
We saw frogs, we saw crabs, we saw all kinds of things in the jungles. We saw sloths, we all saw all kinds of animals. It was really interesting.
Another interesting journey that we took was on a dugout canoe, which we went from a little town of Albina, Suriname, down the Marawina River to French Guiana. And in French Guiana we did see some very interesting jungle information of animals and plants and insects, and it was very, very hot and humid. On the way back, the river was quite rough, and the water sometimes seemed to go over the top of the canoe, and everyone, especially in the back of the canoe, got extremely wet. At one point our boat driver felt that it was too dangerous for us to continue to our original destination, so he had to pull the boat over to the first available slot, and we had to get out, and the boat was filled with water, and he had to bail that out, and we had to wait for a bus to come from another part of the town to pick us up. So that was a little bit interesting also.
It was an amazing time to detox, and of course one of my personal goals was to be shaken up a little bit so that when I came back to the States that I would take a look at my life in a new and better way. And I have to say, there was a lot of shaking up that happened, but it was a good thing. A lot of detox, the heat of the jungle, a lot of detox and sweating, perspiration, you name it. I mean, we really walked, we hiked, we carried, we did everything possible to detox. We had fabulous food, lots of fresh fruit from the jungle, lots of wonderful indigenous meats, all kinds of interesting things that we tried, we did, we explored. It just really set a wonderful tone for the new year.
On the way to Suriname, we did stop in Trinidad briefly and took a tour of that island. I was a little bit disappointed in Trinidad. I think it wasn't as interesting as I thought it would be. Yes, it's very beautiful with mountains and tropical flora and fauna, but for example, in the streets of Port of Spain, which is the capital of Trinidad, we saw a lot of people pretty much half naked, passed out on the middle of the street. Now maybe it was because of the holiday season and they were drinking a lot, but it seemed a little bit discouraging to see such things in Trinidad.
But you know what was interesting is that whole region has escaped from slavery, from victim mentality. And it is one of the things that we're working on here is to remove victim mentality. So a lot of the slaves left, and interestingly enough, those who escaped to the forest of Suriname learned from the Indians, and they call themselves Maroons, which of course, as you know, is a color code for courage. So I thought that was kind of a fitting name for the people who had escaped slavery. So the things that you are moving away from, these people took a lot of courage to do what they had to do in these unknown jungles of their mind, of their life.
And in Suriname, and if you look at my shirt, and you'll see an interesting part of the word, Suriname, instead of Suriname, Suriname, and that's basically one of the things we did was to find out about our ancestry and our DNA, and the energy in Suriname was conducive for us to do that. And those of us who went on the trip and all the guests that came with us did a lot of work on their surname and their ancestry and came up with a lot of fascinating information.
And the origins, that was really what we were delving into. Not only our personal origins, but the origins of humankind, where we came from as a species, and lots of fascinating things that we will be discussing with specifically our January class, and even more detailed with our Oversoul Mastermind group, which will be beginning very shortly. So if you intend to apply for the Oversoul Mastermind group 2013, please do it ASAP. There are only a few days left for that to happen. The January class, we have about 2 spots. We might be able to squeeze you in. If last minute you decide this is where you belong, take advantage of that, because it will not be offered again until 2014.
Also in Suriname, we learned about a secret cave that was discovered in the southern part of the country. I believe it was in 2000. And immediately the Smithsonian Institute got involved, sealed up the cave for 6 years, removed carvings and information from the cave. Nobody knows what they took.
All kinds of artifacts.
Yes, and it took them 6 years. So Lord knows what they found in there. And so we intend to go back and explore that region ourselves and see what's going on. We also know there's a mountain in that region that is very energetic, to the point where airplanes can only take off and land at a certain time of the day, otherwise they vanish. So we're going to find out what's going on in that southern part of Suriname when we come back. We also continued on from Suriname to Curacao, Bonaire, and Aruba. Aruba was probably the most calm and I don't know, relaxing place.
A very soft energy in Aruba.
Mm-hmm. It's only a few kilometers off the coast of Venezuela. Food is great. It's very hot weather, but dry. It's not as humid as it is in Suriname. And we learned that basically only the western strip of very tiny Aruba is habitable. The eastern part of Aruba, you're not allowed to build on it, and it's mostly volcanic rock and desert. It's also where the gold mines were found. The water is extremely rough along the coast. You can't even go swimming in it. But according to the information, nobody knows where that volcanic rock came from, or when that volcano exploded, or where that volcano is. So that's a bit interesting as well.
And there are mountains that do look like pyramids. So
yes.
We did some exploration there as well, some mental work, physical work. A lot of things happened. In fact, we had intended to go down in a submarine, which would take you down to 140 feet under the ocean, but unfortunately there were technical problems with the submarine, so we were not able to do that. But a few of our group who stayed beyond our time went down, and they gave us some very interesting reports of what they saw, what they felt, and what happened under the water.
And interesting, the day after we left, there was a huge power failure throughout the entire island. And as some of you may know, after I leave a place, something usually happens.
And a plane disappeared as well off the coast of Aruba between there and Venezuela.
Yes, with an Italian fashion designer, his wife and entourage. So there's rumors that he was kidnapped, but meanwhile they're still missing as of this recording.
So lots of interesting things happened on our journey. From there we continued on and spent a night in Miami. And of course Miami energy is always very interesting. We weren't there long. It was kind of a short night. And we continued on to cold and a somewhat snowy Michigan.
Yes, and I have to say though, when I was younger and I used to visit Miami, it wasn't such a nice place. But I have to admit, in the last couple of years, having been to Miami a few times in the last couple of years, it's really grown into quite a nice city. And I was quite impressed with it. The people are very friendly, the food is very good, and it's quite manageable. So I'm very surprised and delighted to see that in Miami.
And of course, as you all know, Atlantis is rising out in the middle of the Caribbean. And it was always very interesting things that happened there. All kinds of mysterious sightings. And of course, interesting energy. So we learned a lot. These things we share, of course, in more detail when you attend our seminars and classes, because some of these things are things we need to tell you in person. But as you know, lots of things happened in the news over the holidays. I reported to you before I left that there are a lot of deaths, especially Christmas Day, New Year's Day, during the holiday period, and a lot of things happened while we were gone. Family members, a lot of clients wrote in, things happened to them. People wound up in hospital, people wound up with head gashes, all kinds of things. Illness, sickness, we had reports from all over the world. Depression, suicide. To be honest, it really wasn't a pretty picture for a lot of people who stayed here. And that is why we told you that we wanted to shake things up in a way that would loosen up what we no longer need so that we can move on. 2013 is a year of endings. And so with all the doomsday predictions out there and all kinds of gloomy things, we are telling you that it is time for you to end the cycles that bring you your own doomsday. It's time for you to bring forward a different cycle in your life. And that was what our shaking up was about. So I hope that you're reading the site. I have the free blog that's going on about the start of the new year and how to help you accomplish your goals, how to end the things you don't need, and how to start things that you do need in your life.
And I also started a new format in my personal blog on the site, and those of you who are members will see the difference, and so far it's been a very good feedback from those of you who have read the articles, and there's a video up on there now as well.
Lots of changes for expansions going on in 2013, and you'll just have to keep watching, because when we started this new site approximately a year and a half ago, it was a 3-year project. We are really mid-cycle now. We have more change that will be coming up. We appreciate your financial support, because it does cost a lot of money for us to make these changes and continue to bring things to you in a more user-friendly format. So thank you for your memberships, for your product and service purchases, for sharing whatever you can and passing the word out to people about expansions.com and our hyperspace oversoul work.
Now I do want to address a little bit of a sensitive issue before we close this podcast, and that is the issue of the video that I did in Russia back in October of the Irradia Couple. On YouTube, there's been over 22,000 hits so far of that video. Now, I must say, and I really don't like saying this kind of thing, there is someone out there on another information site who has tried to usurp that information, making it their own. Although they do use my video and credit me with the video, they intimate in their information that it is because of my interview with the couple that the husband is now in a mental institution in Russia. That is not true at all. In fact, when I was in Russia and interviewed with them, they told me back then that they expected this to happen, and that in fact they were looking forward to that happening because they felt it would help their cause in getting asylum in another country. And I have tried to get them asylum in a few other countries, and I was told that unless they were imprisoned or put away in a mental institution, that no other country could possibly help them. And so the husband was very happy to be assigned to a mental institution, actually, because he felt this would help at least his wife to get out of Russia into a better place. So those of you who pay attention to the other sites, and especially this particular one, I'm not going to mention who it is, but you all know who it is. That person tends to be a little bit hostile and aggressive and condemning of other people, and that's their stuff. But I will tell you that the Irradia couple knew exactly what was going to happen to them months in advance, told me about it, and wanted me to promote that across the world, which I did. And I am still attempting to help them and get them out of Russia if that is their desire to this day. And to the other person who is trying to communicate with them and maybe manipulate their situation and make things look the way that they aren't, I would say please watch what you're doing, because in your efforts to glorify yourself in the information that you're bringing, you will be doing damage to the Irradia couple. So please get rid of your ego, person, and pay attention to the information itself.
I would also like to note that we personally know our Russian translator. So some people have mentioned that our translation is a little rough. Our translation is as exact as you are going to get when you convert from one language to another. We know our Russian translator personally. We trust what he has to say and how he says it. And I will tell you that the person who did this last interview was advertising on this particular site for a Russian translator, which means anybody could tell you anything and translate it in any way. So again, be very mindful of your information sources. This is how information turns into disinformation very easily. And when people are well known, unfortunately, sometimes your own powers of discernment fly out the window. When you do our work, you can learn to use your own powers of discernment, and it's not about what somebody else is telling you, but what you know within yourself to be true.
So, use your own power of discernment. I know what the truth is, and hopefully you do as well, and so does the Irradia couple. And so do all my contacts in Russia and all the former Soviet republics. So, is that all you have for today?
I think so. We just kind of want to give you a brief recap of what's been going on in our life. We wish you the best in 2013. And again, we appreciate your support because we have a lot of changes. We have a design team of 5 people working on our site constantly to monitor, to pick the pieces up from, as you know, 1.5 years ago, to move us forward, and we have another 1.5 years to go. So your financial support is extremely important and appreciated. We thank you very much. I hope you are enjoying the membership side, because that's where we have a lot of our deeper information, our videos, our webinars posted that are not available to the public.
So thank you for listening to our podcast this week, which is the...
Actually, today is the 7th.
Of January 2013, so Happy New Year to all of you. And we will keep you updated as frequently as possible.
And take advantage of our Introduction to 2013 scans, which will be on sale for the coming week. So be well, be happy, do your hyperspace oversoul work. Do not get caught up in all the doom and gloom that's being perpetuated upon you. Now is the time to use this as your teaching tool to move beyond, be through it, surpass.
Well, until next time, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
For expansions.com, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.